Waiting for an online shop delivery is one of the most annoying ways to spend your time, especially as an Airsoft player in charge for some new parts of gear. In this particular case of mine, it took 3 weeks from the date of my order until I held the parcel finally in my hands, due to problems at the local sorting center. But now, time is finally here to begin a project I've had in mind for several years. During the first weeks of 2023, I had the chance to get my hands on a VFC G28 body licensed by Heckler Koch, which has been my favorite DMR model since I started playing Airsoft. My aim is to set up a modern and competitive DMR build in the beautiful style of the classic HK G28. In other words, the Airsoft gun I've always dreamed of. My G28 project begins with a bare Gearbox shell from Retro Arms. Extremely durable and lightweight, they are the ideal basis for long-lasting setup. Cleaning the shells and the 8mm bearings with nail polish remover is the first necessary step for precise shimming of the gears, so you get a result as quiet as possible for an AEG. The gear set I chose for this project comes from a Chinese label called Big Dragon and has a transmission ratio of 16:1. I aimed for a short shooting cycle while still having the option to compress a wide variety of possible springs, so 16:1 seemed to be a good solution for me. Shimming this particular gear set inside the version 2.2 gearbox of the G28 was a little bit more difficult than on the standard V2 or V3 boxes, as the Retro Arms shell does not have a lot of inspection windows. Especially when shimming the bevel to pinion gear, which is the most critical point in terms of noise reduction, I did not have proper vision when the box was closed. But in the end, I think I achieved a proper result here, with almost zero play between the bearings, while the gears still run freely. The next step was to prepare the cylinder-piston combination. Most of the components used here were delivered by the German Airsoft shop of Begadi, which developed the designs for many products by themselves. Quality and fitting of the components are on a very high level. I also made good experience with those parts in my SCAR and my AR-15 build, so I think they are also a good choice for the G28. When attaching the piston head to the piston, it's essential to put some Loctite on the threads to prevent the piston head unwinding itself due to the repeated impacts on the cylinder head. Some medium strength Loctite should be sufficient here, so you are able to remove the piston head again eventually. Testing the air seal between piston head, cylinder and cylinder head reveals excellent results here. I expect having some good consistency of shots later on. One of the parts that are not standard V2 compatible is the tappet plate. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the original one by VFC, which has enough flexibility in the rear part, while the front remains sturdy and does not bend too much. When it comes to choose the right length for the air nozzle for a G28 or HK417, it would be around 21.35mm. Depending on bucking and hop-up unit, 21.4 could also be suitable. As you can see, the nozzle fits the cylinder head with absolutely zero play, an advantage you get when combining as many components as possible from the same manufacturer. As all of the major gearbox parts were in their place now, it was time for some greasing and closing the gearbox afterwards. For greasing, I use heavy-duty bearing grease from the automotive industry, which should provide excellent lubrication qualities and good stickiness to the gears. The gearbox still needed a proper spring for the air compression. Therefore, an M130 spring from Begadi came into use. The cool feature about them is that they have their power label engraved on one of their ends, so there's no more guessing about the actual strength of the spring. At this point, the gearbox was finished. Time to install it into the lower receiver. The selector plate is also needed, of course, or we won't be able to put the gun into safety mode later on. For the motor connection, I wanted to implement a special idea of mine. I always had my problems with installing and removing the cables from the bottom end of the motor, and already broke one of the tiny plugs during a game. In my opinion, it's a way better solution to screw the cables to the motor by using 2 ring cable lugs. There's no way those could fall off, and they can hold a lot more mountings and dismountings than the original ones. Easy, efficient and a reliable solution. That's how I like it. The lower receiver is finished now. Let's switch over to the inner barrel and hop-up combination. My inner barrel of choice was the PPS FX7 with an overall length of 455mm. It comes with a 7mm extra large window for the hop-up bucking, which offers more flexibility in case I want to change it to a different system in the future. For now, I picked up a Maple Leaf MR hop bucking in 60 Shore, which is one of my go-to buckings for heavy BBs. As a hop-up chamber, I picked up the Maxx Model ME in its second generation, which is easy to recognize from its golden coating. To install the Maxx unit in combination with the Retro Arms gearbox shell, it's necessary to remove a little bit from the BB ledge so it can open far enough to let the BBs come in. A 7mm aluminium tensioner, which fits the inner barrel's window perfectly, is also included in the setup. The hop-up patch comes down well centered and not too deep. Everything looks good here. One little peculiarity of the G28 is the block which guides the hop-up unit inside the upper receiver. The original one does not fit the Maxx Model unit, so I needed a special part here, which I found at HP Airsoft from Poland. It allows the unit to slide in without any friction, just as it should be. We are almost finished, guys. Time to put everything together in the upper receiver. The only thing left is to unite both upper and lower, and here she is. To see how the G28 DMR performs, I set up a target on about 60 meters of distance. The box has a similar size to a player who is behind a cover, so I think we have a good idea how it will shoot in a typical in-game situation.
Salvenfeuer.
Alright, I think we got some serious precision here. Let's shoot some BBs through the Chrono and see how much energy she delivers. After all, I can say that I'm pretty happy with the results of my project build. The looks, the range and the precision are just as I've expected when setting up the parts list, while still having some more potential with adding a more powerful spring. What do you think about the G28 replica by VFC? Would you have used different parts than I did? Feel free to tell me in the comments. So long guys, see you in the next video, and as always, have a good one.